Hey everyone, I know it's spring, but it's never too early to think about harvest. Gearinghoff is head of the class no matter the crop, making premium harvesting heads for all your harvesting needs. Check them out at gearinghoff.com.
He said, Webster, your beans look terrible because they're too tall.
No.
He said, you should have used a plant growth regulator, things like that. And yeah, they're probably right, and we're going to do some more testing on that. But what if I can roll some of these soybeans, set them back a little bit, shorten them up that way, and then drive yield even higher?
Ladies and gentlemen, farmers, ranchers, and distinguished guests, thank you for listening to the Farm for Profit podcast, where we discuss the latest ideas, methods, trends, and techniques available to help your farm achieve higher levels of farm profitability. The Farm for Profit podcast is co-hosted by Tanner Winterhoff, the Iowa Bankerman, and David Whitaker, the Iowa Land Guy, where in tandem they will share their ideas and advice from industry experts. Thank you again for listening to the Farm for Profit podcast. Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long. And now, here's Tanner and David.
Hey, listeners, welcome back to the Farm for Profit podcast. This is Tanner Winterhoff.
This is Corey Hillebo.
And Dave is going to join us here just a little bit later. Oh, you know what, though? Dave's not actually on this episode.
You forgot.
I did forget, because we are going to share with you a conversation we actually had at the National Farm Machinery Show. And Corey, you and I are the ones that had that conversation.
Yeah, that was the day we had to split up. Dave was actually back at the Sukup booth.
That's right.
We were at Brandt. Yeah, it was a hectic day.
Yeah, so no Dave today. Sorry, listeners. If you want to catch Dave, you're going to have to check us out next week on a Farm for Fun show. That's the way we got our nickname, the Mullet of Ag Podcast. This is the business episode. Still going to be entertaining for you. Still going to provide a lot of value. But next week is the happy hour conversation, Corey.
Yep. And if you guys have any suggestions of topics, want to tell us how we're doing, as always, farm4profitllc@gmail.com, or hit us up on any of the social medias that we have, any of those channels. Leave us a review at Apple Podcasts, all those places, but we have a new one.
Yes. You can either text us or leave us a voicemail. 515-207-9640.
Yep. We'll try to pull one of those out maybe every week once we start getting them rolling in and feature one. If there's anything quality, if you guys just leave us bad comments all the time, we're not going to read that stuff.
And if you come up with something good that phone number actually spells out, you need to let us know, because we're not coming up with anything. It's not like 1-800-CALL-FLOWERS.
Yep. But we always feature a review, and the listener review this week is brought to you by Sukup Manufacturing. Sukup has held more than 100 U.S. patents and continues finding ways to make grain storage, drying, and handling more safe, profitable, and efficient for farmers in the agriculture industry.
You know, that seems like a great fit for us here on the Farm for Profit podcast.
And they're local.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Cody V wants to apparently not disclose his full last name.
I'm just going to go out on a limb and probably, is it Vanderholm?
Oh, it could be. Does he spell his name like that? It's the wrong way to spell Cody if you want to spell Cody like Corey.
I think that's the right way to spell Cody.
Okay. The right way spelled Cody V in an email. I don't know how to comment through Google Podcasts, but I love your podcast. I like how you incorporate information and entertainment into one. It works well. Thank you,
Cody.
That is one of the greatest compliments we can get. But yes, if you've got a listener review, we'd appreciate that. Also share this with your family and friends. You are the reason we're here. You're the reason we continue to show up each week and put together some content for your ears and put things together. But we can't say enough thanks to BW Fusion for being a long-term partner of the podcast, clearly putting their money where their faith is. And they want you as the listener to benefit from this partnership.
Yep, they are combining the best-in-class products along with the BW 365 Soil and Tissue Program, provides growers the tools and resources necessary to identify limiting factors and address them accordingly in real time with results-focused interventions to maximize yield, potential, and ROI.
It's like you read that off the paper.
I absolutely did read that off the paper. But seriously, though, I mean, okay, it is the beginning of May. Hopefully crops are just peeking through. This is the time that we need to be focusing on what's going on out in our field. So get together with those guys. It's like having like your fingers on the pulse.
Absolutely. I don't think I could have said it better myself.
Yep.
And now it's time, Corey, to jump into two conversations we had at the National Farm Machinery Show. Listeners, It was a great time. We enjoyed meeting you. We enjoyed hanging out with everybody. But this is the last time you will get content from that show. So cherish it. Let us know what you thought, and we'll look forward to meeting you in person at the next one. But let's jump right into it, Corey. Here we go. And again, live from the National Farm Machinery Show in Louisville, Kentucky, 2022. Sitting here at the Brandt booth to learn more about what is working in agriculture. Had a lot of fun walking around this booth, Corey, with you and seeing all the products that are available and the innovation that's in place. But specifically today, we're going to talk about the new dual auger DXT grain cart. Welcome back, Hans.
Thank you.
For our listeners, because they can't hear it enough, could you remind them what your name is and what you do for Brandt?
My name is Hans Rasmussen. I'm the regional sales manager for the Midwest Northeast, based out of Illinois, where our factory is for the U.S.
Yeah. And we're not looking directly at the DXT cart, Corey.
It's looking at us.
It's looking at us. It's actually outside the venue, just due to its sheer size, right?
That's correct.
Too big for the biggest farm machinery show.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Hans, tell us a little bit about the DXT cart, and it's got a lot of new innovative features on it, correct?
That's correct. And again, it comes through the program that we do when we introduce any new product. We use what we call a customer advisory group, where we bring in 20 to 25 farmers, discuss what they like to see, what they don't like to have, what they would love to have added. And so the DXT is taking all that into account as well. One of the things that was very popular with our single auger, we've also continued with the dual auger, which is the ground access door, ground level. So you can actually walk up 2-3 steps and you're in at floor level in the cart. So when you're cleaning it out, changing varieties, crops, it's easier to get in and out of the cart.
That's what I love about all of your guys' cart. You have that access door on the back that I've never seen on any other grain cart.
No.
You can kernel clean that thing if you're in, seed or whatever. It's great.
Yeah, switching from high moisture corn. If you want to clean it out so you don't end up with anything caked on or rotten in there.
Crops.
Yeah. Absolutely. The other neat part, and I know that this is not necessarily unique, but you start the size of these carts at 1,150 bushels.
That's correct. We started at 1,150 and go up to 2,500. Previously, our previous range, we went up to 2,000. But again, everything's getting bigger. Farmers are wanting more. So now we're offering a 2,500 bushel cart.
Yeah, I could see that being handy to where you don't have to have it plumb full to completely fill 2 trucks. At least in Iowa.
Yeah.
You can get it full from the combine, don't have to worry about spilling, go fill 2 trucks, come on back.
That's correct, and some people are also utilizing it a bit of surge capacity because nowadays it's hard to find employees, so trucks are a problem. And this way here you can have hold more in the field and keep the combine running.
Absolutely.
It's almost like a mother bin like they use in Australia.
Yeah, just a little bit smaller in this case.
Yeah, just a baby one.
Yeah.
Just a baby mother bin.
But it's still huge. I'm trying to imagine the tractor pulling this too, because again, we're going to need some
You're
serious
gonna need
weight and horsepower.
That's correct.
So with that 2,500 bushel capacity, we clearly don't want to be sitting at the truck waiting forever to get it unloaded. You also have pretty high capacity unload.
That's correct. One of the things, again, also when you're in the field, you're not sure which side of the truck you'd rather load. So we're also offering right-hand or left-hand unload possibilities. You have a choice of a 22-inch auger unload that gives you 600 bushels a minute unload, or a 24-inch that gives you 1,000 bushels unload in a minute.
I'm pretty sure you would figure out a way pretty easily to spill,
That's what I was
Corey.
going to say about you. From the bank and on the in-laws farm, you haven't been in it all day. I'm pretty sure you'd have a big pile of corn on the ground.
You want to be watching the spout.
Maybe you don't want to start learning on that, right?
You don't want the grain cart to be the weak link. The driver's going to be the weak link.
Yeah, and so try to avoid some of the pressure on the driver. With some of the scale heads, we have one that you can program with an auto shut-off. So you set the weight that you want it to unload, and the gate will shut so you're not spilling.
That's genius. That would save.
Where's that been all my life?
I just was kind of thinking the same, almost speechless. But it's neat to see innovation in a piece of equipment that is essential to productivity, which ties obviously to farm profitability.
Yeah.
And it's fun to know that the way you went about it is getting the opinions from the operators and the purchasers themselves to get that done. But I assume, like any cart, we can kind of choose our undercarriage is what I'm going to state.
Yeah, we have choices again depending on which model, with different wheel options and different track options. On the larger ones, the 2000 and 2500, we also have tandem wheel options.
Yeah. That would be something I think, Corey, as we look into compaction and managing that, especially as these carts get larger, to know what's going to work best for your farm, because every farm is going to be set up differently.
Yeah. Tracks have been another thing that's been coming on, and that's what I want on my next cart.
Yeah, with the onset of tracks, we've also got some different options too in sizes, but also we to keep maintenance levels down, we have auto greasers available, things like that to make sure things do get maintained, yet you're not spending time doing it.
Those auto greasers are great. Again, where has that been all my life?
Yeah.
But I even looked at the brochure on this, and it stated that it's minimal maintenance anyway, that there's very few grease points.
That's true. We have, again, depending on the model, it's very few, and some of them are only greased once a season.
Oh, yeah, that certainly helps, because we all know that when I come out of the office and get into the grain cart, I'm not first grabbing the grease gun.
Yeah. Another thing that's unique on these that I don't see on any other cart is it's all bolted together.
That's correct, and it's part of that is how we construct it, so that everything is powder painted. This way we can run everything through the automated line. It's powder painted. Also, if people, and it does happen, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's bumped into something with a grain cart, you can replace a single panel rather than having to do the whole thing.
Yep.
Absolutely. And
Don't have welds breaking.
No.
so the neat part about the DXT, the dual auger cart, is those appear to be so much lower profile. So I assume in the design that you have different angles inside the hopper, and then what is it compared to the industry as far as height?
That's actually a good point, and it was one of the some of the farmers, especially in the rolling areas, they were wanting a lower loading height, so that the combine auger, when you're going through waterways, rolling terrain, that you're not having the possibility of the auger from the combine hitting. So we are approximately 11 inches lower than the lowest currently out in the market for filling. And then our angle for filling of the hopper is 42 degrees, which is also the steepest. And it's the way we've designed it, making the cart a little bit longer, but also we're going down in between the chassis to take up the volume we need.
So it's the lowest, but they're not sacrificing
Size.
quality or
Right.
quantity.
Quantity, yes.
But
that's
But
great.
also
Yep.
keeping the angle, so if you're doing 28% corn, you're not worried about it hanging up.
So that's big to me, because when we're going and unloading Dad and I in the field, and we go through like a washout or
Yeah.
something like that, we have to remember to go out and around, because we've hit before, and that's not a good thing.
No, you're not the
Replace
only
a combine
one.
auger
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
a dent. In
Yeah,
the
you're
front.
really not worried about putting a dent as much as you are. You're going
auger,
to have to
yeah.
replace the auger.
So, yeah, you always pull out and away from the combine to get away from it. But, field day in the field's a long time. And then you get tired, and then you forget about it. And then all of a sudden, whoops.
Yeah, and it's not only the cost of that auger, but now you've lost some days here in the last couple of years trying to get supply issues. Maybe you're going to lose a week before you get the parts.
Time is money.
No, this is great. This is another awesome What's Working in Ag segment to learn as far as a linchpin and a harvest portion of your operation goes, to make sure that we have the leading technology in the industry and a lot of these small hiccups fixed.
Right, and small features that, like, for example, the access door I keep going back to, but that is one of the big features that the farmers really appreciate. And if you've had to climb into one without that, you'd understand.
So if we're looking to order one or we want to read more about it, where can we find information on the Brandt DXT grain cart?
Again, the best thing is go to our website, www.brandt.ca, punch in a dealer locator, your zip code, and it'll come up with the dealer in your area.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Hans, for joining us. And listeners, that was another great What's Working in Ag segment.
We're here at our field day.
We've had a great number of farmers out here. It's been an awful lot of fun. We've been demoing many different machines from the Salford Independent Series and a couple of other ones.
We did test strips. We put signs up. We let the guys walk through it, kick the soil, dig in it, see what they liked. And then we also did live demos where the guys drove by in some side-by-sides, and also a couple guys jumped in the cabs and watched them work from the cab.
Salford's unique. We make several traditional pieces of tillage equipment, cultivators, plows, that sort of thing. In the early 2000s, they started making what has evolved into the Independent Series, which is a set of vertical tillage tools that come in a variety of aggressive levels and perform a different variety of tasks. They're at different spacings, designed for spring work, fall work, and it seems everyone that buys one finds new things that it can do.
It's different. It's something that our main manufacturers aren't carrying. We do make an independent vertical tillage. A lot of the other ones on the line that make vertical tillage don't have the style we have, so that stands out to a lot of guys. Make sure you do your research. Come to a field day. We like to do them. We have fun. We also do have demo units, so get a hold of your local sales guy and maybe we can get a demo out to your farm.
Demo days are a great way to see the vast tillage machinery lineups that Salford has to offer in action. Now is the season to get out to a local field day or book a Salford tillage demo for yourself. Head over to salfordgroup.com/farm4profit to contact a local dealer to see what is available near you. Also, Salford has a bonus for Farm4Profit listeners only. They're giving away a custom Orion cooler prize package. So go to that salfordgroup.com/farm4profit and enter to win this cool cooler package. The timing is perfect as the temperatures are heating up to keep those drinks of yours cool while you're in the field. That site again is salfordgroup.com/farm4profit. Also, as a bonus, if you follow them on any of their social media platforms using the handle @SalfordGroup, you will get bonus entries. Good luck. So we are here at the National Farm Machinery Show, picking up plenty of content for us to have and use, especially for this spring. And Corey, I'm excited about the topic we're going to discuss now because it's almost not new anymore, but there's still a lot of people that have some concerns over it. We're going to talk about rolling soybeans. Is that something you've ever done?
Actually, it was my first time this year. You know, where I used to work in northern Iowa, it was a common thing. But now we're bringing it south, down by Des Moines. We had it. So we actually rolled beans that were standing this year.
Nice.
Which scared the crap out of me.
We might have to get results out of you.
I mean, that's like white-knuckle driving for farmers.
It is.
Yes. So our guest today to help us with this is Jason Webster from Precision Planting. Jason, if I'm not wrong, you are the lead commercial agronomist at Precision Planting, acting as the key researcher and educator for the Precision Planting commercial team, their dealers, and their growers.
That's right.
Look at that. Pulled
I'm
it right
kind of
off.
fanboying out here because, like, I knew you told me the name who was coming here, and then when he turns around, I'm like, oh, I've watched your videos. It sounds kind of dirty, but, like, yeah, I've watched a lot of your educational videos. That's great. So,
your experience bolsters the on-farm research efforts and the capability of providing solid agronomic educational information for your dealers and your growers, and that's what we're here for today. Is we hope our listeners can gain something out of this, either in confidence, so you're not scared to death like Corey was, or in peace of mind, knowing that you either should or shouldn't be doing it. So I look forward to doing this, but why was rolling a crop ever introduced into agriculture? Do you know why rolling ever started?
Well, I think rolling got started many years ago for rock management. In rock country, guys were rolling to push these rocks down into the ground so they could actually harvest efficiently without running the risk of putting a combine through a machine. And I think along the way we found other things that worked really nice, like hurting the soybeans a little bit going post-emerge, making them come back with a vengeance and giving us more yield. That came along after. We never thought that was going to happen, but it did.
Yeah.
So it originally started for rocks, and I can see why, because it's always scary noise when I'm sitting in a combine and you hear one come in.
Absolutely.
You're hoping it stops before it gets anywhere to cause damage.
As these headers get wider and wider, you can't see out to the edge of a 40-foot draper header,
Yeah.
You're bringing a massive amount of material in. You can't see rocks.
Yeah. Especially at night.
Yeah.
Nighttime,
yeah.
it's just you cross your fingers, Yeah. So now we're pushing them in the ground. We're just kind of rolling right on top of them with the draper head and feel a little bit more confident with it, yeah.
Now, I know there's some areas. It's not necessarily a problem very often in our portion of Iowa, but some dirt clods are almost as hard as rock also. and might be able to last and stick around there and maybe cause issues all season the same way.
Yeah, corn stalks. We got a lot of seed bean growers. The quality of the beans coming into the combine, if we can push some of those corn stalk down, especially no-till, then the draper, kind of pushes them down as well. We don't get them into that sickle, get them into the combine, and you got a really clean sample. So that's another benefit.
Yeah. So Corey knows, and our listeners know, and Jason knows that I do a lot of research, try to do a lot of research before these conversations. And what I pulled off the old interweb for the benefits of rolling the soybeans is obviously the reduced operator fatigue during harvest time, less downtime during harvest time, less wear and tear on your harvest equipment. You can combine potentially at a faster speed, and then just like you said, the cleaner seed sample at harvest. So all that seems like common sense, but it was at least worth putting on the internet in an article to have me re-say it.
Yeah. Our main reason for rolling this year was because of the dirt. So we do grow seed beans, and the year before, it never rained and really settled the clods down. And so when we were dumping the grain cart into the semi, you couldn't even see. It was just dust. So we were like, we have to do something different. The quality of the beans were fine, but they were dirty, so they had to clean them extra and all that. They told us that. So that's why we chose to roll this year, hoping to get that yield benefit on top of it.
Yeah. Even conventional tillage, things like that, I think it helps pushing that residue into the ground. The draper's going to roll right over top of it. We don't get it in the machine. We get a cleaner sample. It works out really, really nice.
Yeah.
So now you ran a specific study on rolling beans. What was the basis of the study? And then we'll get into the results afterwards.
Yeah. So I'm not in rock country where we did this study, and so that wasn't one of the things I was focused on. I was mainly focused on hurting soybeans.
Yeah.
I wanted to hurt soybeans. I love high yielding beans, and I said, you know what? Why don't we come in and roll them? Yeah, we'll handle some of this stalk residue. We'll push it down, but I wanted to hurt the beans so they come back with a vengeance and give me more yield. That was my focus.
Okay. So how did you choose to do that? What roller did you use, and how did you set up your comparisons?
So working with the folks at Brandt, we brought in a 50-foot roller. And what I wanted to do, and I think from the past studies that we've done, the trick is with rolling beans is you don't want to do them early, you don't want to do them late. The later you do it, the more injury you're going to have, and this data could go the wrong way. So we set our protocol up to come in at second trifoliate and fourth trifoliate when the beans were fairly early. These were 30-inch rows is where we ended up testing them, and we ran through, and we had some pretty nice results with them, actually.
Well, good. So I'm looking forward to the results. Should we jump into that, Corey? You got another question about
I was
how?
just going to say, it's nerve-wracking, like I said in the beginning, going through and rolling down perfectly good beans.
Yeah.
and I was going around, I think, what do they say for the size of beans like that you can't go past? Is it like 5 inches? Or V4 or 5?
I usually say 5 inches or V5 just to be on the safe side, but early ski. So
I was getting out and like stepping on the beans before I did it.
Oh, good.
And I actually didn't do a couple fields because they were I thought they were a little crispy.
Yeah.
Like they snapped.
Yep.
And the ones that just went down and kind of popped back and bent, those were what we rolled.
That's the trick. If you get them too tall, you'll bend them over and you'll snap that main stem, and we had some snappage. I call it snappage at V2 and V4. We come back, we flag them when it actually happens. I got a team there. We flag them so we can monitor them to the growing season. Those never come back. They're dead.
They didn't.
They're dead. They're dead.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. And so the smaller the better. I think the trick running it is you can run pretty high speeds, but if you're wet, you have wetter soils, you're going to pick up a little bit of soil. That'll slow you down a little bit. But if it's dry as a bone, you can go about as fast as you want. You just got to make sure you're not picking them up.
Yeah. That makes sense. So what were the results? What did you see from rolling beans? Are you going to be doing it again?
We will be doing it again. This was the first year that we looked at it. We have to have our data sets in 3-year data sets. Academia always says you got to have 3 years of data to prove whether something's repeatable or not. You can do it over again.
Sure.
So this is year 1 of 3 or many more. But we picked up 2.5 bushel at the V2 growth stage, second trifoliate. But when we went later to V4, we cut that yield in half. But if you look at the V2 growth stage, picking up that 2.5, it was actually 2.4 bushel using the price of soybeans.
Especially today. As we record at the National Farm Machinery Show.
Yeah, beans have a great price right now. And actually, they've gone up since harvest. And we were using $12 beans into our calculations. Everything's economics. And it came up just under a $30 net gain by rolling beans at V2. So showing up on the positive side in year one, we're going to continue to do it, and we'll just keep watching this thing and seeing some of the benefits that come along with it.
You don't have to remind me how much I sold my beans for.
So from the profit analysis side, obviously there's a cost to rolling, but it's got to be fairly minimal because, like you said, you're covering 50 feet wide in your trial. I know they make rollers much larger than that Brandt has available. So is the cost as low as I think it is for rolling, or is that, you said a $30 gain? We didn't just give it all back and roll in the beans.
Yeah. We're trying to figure custom charges for everything, and you really can't put a rolling cost in University of Illinois custom charge list. It's not there. So I try to be generous cost wise, so someone can't come back to me and say, you're using too cheap of a cost.
Yeah.
I'm at $8. $8,
Okay.
and
I'm
for a 50-foot
pretty sure Iowa
roller,
State has a custom
do
charge.
they?
for
Oh, that's great.
rolling. Yep.
You know what they run?
I want to say
5, 6,
5. So
7?
I'm a little heavier
Yeah.
on it. So
yeah, I was going to
that's
say
okay.
it sounded like in our neck of the woods, if someone's going to custom roll for you, depending upon the number of acres and the size of your field, it's in that $5 to $8 range.
Yeah, that's probably pretty good. I mean, like I said, I'm a 50-foot roller, and we're going at 8 mile an hour. You can get a lot of acres covered quick.
That was pre-inflation too, so it probably is $8 now for sure.
So when you look at the results and we put this together, what is the science behind what you did to that soybean? Do you know the science behind why this potentially would be beneficial in hurting the plant?
To me, it's all about shortening that bean up, and we want more concentration on reproductive growth, not vegetative growth. And that's what this whole thing is designed to do. Shorten these beans up, make them node closer together, and run those laterals. We like to choose a soybean variety that gives us nice lateral branching, that architecture to do it. We shorten them up. We force them to put the laterals out. And, most soybeans, we're going to have 18 nodes on a plant, 18 to 20. If I can shorten them up, I've seen it with some of the rolling where now we're at 80 to 100 nodes per plant. That's more beans. That's more yield.
You're just nodding your head, Corey.
I am,
It's like
'cause
he's saying all the right
Hey,
things
if you
to
watch
you.
my TikTok, that's exactly what I say all the time during the summer. Like we're going out in beans, we're thinning populations too.
We are.
To do that,
Yeah,
right?
we are.
But like beans like to be treated badly, and at the right time.
Right. So that's what I picked up on first out of this conversation is it's better to do it earlier than it is to wait later, especially if you go too late, you're really going to damage your crop.
I think you will run more of them over, and smash them, break them off. We just going from V2 to V4, we cut population in half at V4. We're picking up 10% dead plants. And yeah, we've probably been overseeding soybeans, what you were referring to, and so we can compensate for it. Again, architecturally, we've got to have that bean that can branch for us. But years ago, I remember doing some trials. We were bringing some treatments in. We were turning on the end rows, and I wasn't worried about the end rows. I was worried about in the field and the individual treatments. But when I'd come back to scout them, I'd look at my tire tracks in the end rows, and these beans that I ran over, they were shortened up. And one day I noticed this bean that, it had like 20-some nodes on it on the main stem. It was really short, about half the size of a normal plant, but all these laterals on it and just loaded with clusters of pods. And I said, wait a minute, I damaged that plant and it came back with a vengeance and rewarded me. Maybe there's something to this thing.
Yep,
and that was
right.
a long time ago, but that's kind of where this whole thing started. We said, can we do this out in the field effectively with a roller?
I've got a real-world situation that we had on our farm several years ago when we were planting thicker population soybeans. The beans, we didn't roll them. The beans would get up and just tall and gangly, great yield. But then a slight wind would come through and they just lodge in one direction. And then you try to pick at different angles through the field. And then you're leaving these stringy beans. You try different settings on your bean head. And we had to stop. We said, we got to look at this data. We were picking up 8 bushels going one direction versus the other. We picked the rest of that field one way.
Because of
beans. And if we can stack these nodes, get a more robust plant, and not have that headache, it's another, just a value to making a bean that won't go down.
Absolutely.
So rolling works better in different soil and weather conditions, correct? It's not a good thing to do when it's tacky or muddy. Are we looking for drier conditions?
I like drier conditions. You get into softer soils, you're going to push them down. You could bury, especially if you're going in real early, you bury the cotyledons, you might be done. You might kill them.
Yep.
Dry conditions, I think, are better. Push them over, just set them back a little bit, and then we're in pretty good shape.
Is there a time of day that is better for beans? Because I was kind of noticing, they're a little floppier, if for lack of a better term, in certain parts of the day.
In my opinion, what we found is if you're worried about them being too tall and you're kind of getting in there a little bit late, I would probably do them later in the day, and they tend to be what you're referring to, and you'll get less breakage, I think. Early in the morning when they're actively growing, I think you're probably just going to have the opposite situation from what we've seen.
Yep. Yeah. The beans are resilient.
They are.
And you're talking about killing cotyledons. You think usually if you lose those, you're done. I mean, there was some hail that went through northern Iowa, and they were saying, nope, they're done, go replant. There's no cotyledons left, all that. A lot of those beans came back.
I was kind of upset. I always remind growers of this. When I was in college, my professors would tell me one thing, and then I go into the real world and I actually do it, and I don't know that I exactly find what they told me is true. Cotyledons are one. We manually plunked off cotyledons of soybean plants to actually see, okay, is that the food source? If we plunk the cotyledons off or remove them, will it kill soybeans? It didn't. It didn't. It was a very low percentage. It did affect yield, but it did not kill the soybeans like I was previously told.
Yeah.
No, that's a good question, Corey. I never even would have thought of that. If you should roll in the morning, you should roll. Going back to what you'd asked, and I sat here and almost daydreamed myself away, wondering what that would be like doing it in the middle of the night. Just to try and provide different comparisons, but I more care about what the future is. Like I said, you're trying to go for 2 more years of data.
That's right.
Are you going to do the same thing this season in 2022, or are you going to add other variables to get different data? Or are you just sticking with what you did last year?
We'll go more variables. We will do exactly what we did so we can get multi-year data on it, but I'd like to do more variables. I'd like to go a little earlier and then a little bit later so we can really develop that nice bell curve of what's too early, what's too late. And then, I don't know, you guys are giving me some pretty good ideas about time of day and things like that. I think that would be an easy variable to put into the protocol.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's probably a difference, whether it's no-till, tilled, how soft is the ground, strip till, that kind of stuff.
We do a lot of tillage studies. We do inline ripping, we do no-till, vertical till, strip till, conventional till, and it would be really neat to look at every single tillage with this at the same growth stages. That would be some really good information I think farmers would like.
I will say we were full tillage, we're now strip tillage, but last year when I rolled it was full tillage. And then we had the row cleaners going, which had just a little bit of a ridge, I would say, or a elevation in the middle of the row. So I felt like the roller actually rolled on top of that more. It never really got to the base of the bean, but it was still kind of doing what I want. I mean, I don't know, it made me feel better.
Well, in that ridge where you're at, that's where the sickle bar is going to be running and grabbing that in. So that's the most important area to do.
Yep.
So yeah, you were doing a good thing. Yeah.
Yep.
So I also am curious, since you ran the Brandt roller, what did you like about the Brandt roller when you had your opportunity to run it?
Well, the Brandt roller, first of all, we hadn't run a 50-foot roller ever. They were always smaller. I will tell you, we got a lot of acres done quick with this thing. It was fast and furious. It's all about acreage and get her done quick. And low fuel consumption, it didn't pull hard. I like the transport of it. When we're done with the field, we can lock this thing up, get around the road, and go to the next one. We had virtually no issues with it.
Pretty easy to fold up?
It was. It was pretty easy. Turning on the ends and some of our plots was probably one of my challenges with it just because it was so big, but that's being a research farm and that's not having big alleyways, big end rows to turn on. But other than that, it did what it was supposed to do, and I'm intrigued about using it again. I'd like to find more ways. My high yield beans this year went 110 bushel.
Nice.
And one of the things the guys yelled at me about all summer long was, he said, Webster, your beans look terrible because they're too tall.
Oh.
He said, you should have used a plant growth regulator, things like that. And yeah, they're probably right, and we're going to do some more testing on that. But what if I can roll some of these soybeans, set them back a little bit, shorten them up that way, and then drive yield even higher? So it will be part of my high yield program this coming year in 2022.
Yeah. No, that's good. Corey, do you have any other questions to ask around rolling our soybeans?
I don't have any questions. Just a comment on, I asked about the folding. That the one, it wasn't a Brandt that I used. I borrowed it from a neighbor. A steel drum's a steel drum, but how you fold it and how you transport it and, the tires and the bearings and all that kind of stuff, that's key. So that one that we had did not fold very well.
It did not.
No, it was not fun. You had to get out of the tractor and do quite a bit of checking to make sure you weren't messing something up majorly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And for us, it's just like anything new, knowing how to do it. And once you do it a couple of times, then it's okay. And I guess we usually have some folks with me, the folks that are helping us with the research. So always having an extra set of helping hands always helps too. So
I mean, it's a heavy piece of equipment.
It is heavy. Yeah.
Right. It has to be.
It has to be. To do the job it's supposed to do. That's right. That's right.
Yep.
So we ask every one of our guests the same question before we close out, and that is, what do you know now that you wish you'd have known sooner? So think about that, and I'm going to try and summarize, Corey, and you'll come up with a challenge. It shouldn't be too difficult of a challenge,
I can do that.
as we put this together. So we talked about rolling our soybeans. The key is, historically, it was done to protect ourselves from combine damage. We're going to mash the rocks, the dirt clods down in the ground. We're going to keep our combines cleaner. It's going to keep our grain samples cleaner and hopefully keep us running, maybe even faster during the fall as we put this together. But we're learning that there are other benefits and potentially yield-boosting benefits to doing this. Jason Webster with Precision Planting has done his research, and so far, out of 1 year's worth of data, has seen a yield bump in rolling at various stages. So he's going to work to get more data to get us 3 years worth of studies to continue to prove that. But by damaging, as Corey called it, hurting the beans a little bit, we potentially are forcing them to put on more characteristics of higher yielding beans, keeping them shorter.
Stack nodes, that's right.
Yep. And putting this together. So there are benefits in the research that we have access to today to do that. So what do you think, Jason, is something that you know now that you wish you'd have known sooner?
Well,
why don't you give him a couple seconds, Corey, and throw the challenge out?
I can give a challenge here. While you're thinking, do you have a video out there on the rolling?
we do.
You did?
We do.
All right.
Yep.
So my challenge is to, where can we find that?
Yeah, so you can go to our inside PTI videos at precisionplanting.com. It's all right there, readily available. Yep.
So my challenge is to go there, check out the rolling studies, check out the videos of them doing that. Check it out for yourself. Talk to someone. If you don't have it, you don't have access to it.
Yeah.
There's people that rent rollers. There's someone around you that's done it, and or go check out my TikToks from back last
true.
spring.
Yeah, there you
might
go.
have to sort through some of the videos. Some of them aren't quite great, but yeah, it worked good for us. So I would say check it out.
All right. What do you think, Jason?
Probably the biggest thing we've learned over really this past year, high yield soybeans, specifically for bean pods. So I'll tell you a little story if we have time.
Yeah, you do.
So we go in, every year we plant a high yield soybean study, multiple of them, but one specifically. We planted these beans. We come in early, and beans come up, and I got people coming into the farm, got farmers pulling in with their pickup trucks and say, hey, what did you do to those beans? They look awful darn good. And I said, well, don't count your chickens yet. We got a long ways to go yet. The season ain't over yet. We get about a month down the road, and guys are still coming in. Some of the biggest beans in the county because I planted them so early, and they're just big, right? And guys are like, oh, what'd you do to those soybeans? They look awful good. And like, just hold on. We get to July 15th, 1st of August. Now all of a sudden the tides change. Guys are coming out to my field and saying, Jason, what did you do with your soybeans? Because they look terrible. Yeah. I said, what do you mean my beans look terrible? And this was happening day after day after day. And finally, we had a starter fertilizer company that had a day at our farm, and an agronomist stands up, and I'm standing in these soybeans, and the agronomist stands up and says, Jason, what did you do with your beans? They look terrible. And I got depressed. I put my head down in these soybeans, but my eyeballs were wide open, and I looked down in the canopy, and it was just 4 bean pods everywhere. And there was a young man that was on the trailers we had. We were taking people out in the field. This kid was probably in 7th or 8th grade or something. And I said, son, have you ever seen a 4-bean pod before in beans? He says, no. I said, come with me. So we go out into the beans. I take him out into the bean field, and I showed him what a 4-bean pod was. And I said, your job over the next few minutes is just pick as many 4-bean pods as you can find. And I go back and I start talking to the other guys that were on in the part of the field day. Well, they weren't listening to me talk at all because they're watching this kid pick all these beans out in the field. His hand got quickly full of the 4-bean pods. He had nowhere else to put them, so he untucks his shirt, pulls it out, and starts putting all these 4-bean pods in his shirt. And this kid comes up when he's done, lets his shirt down, and all these 4-bean pods just fall right on the ground. And I looked at that agronomist and said, "Yo, your beans look terrible." I said, "What do you think about my soybeans now?" And so I asked the group, I said, "How many 4-bean pods are you supposed to have in your beans at home?" And everybody, they would never answer me when I asked this question. How do you get a 4-bean pod? And what we learned, and not just this year, but in previous years, is you can't just spray a product on soybeans at R1, a snake oil, if you will,
yep,
and get it to make you a 4-bean pod. It's total management, and it starts with the planter, the fertility program. We do what we call a 5-point touch, different products to set it up and build a foundation. Like build a house. You build a house on a crappy foundation, your house is going to fall down. And it's that early foundation. And then once the beans get to R1, we maintain. And and we can do a pretty good job of growing some high yield beans, but that was conceptually backwards from what I was used to years ago. And we're kind of learning the same things on corn, but since we're talking mainly about beans today, I thought that was kind of a fun little story.
No, I like that. I appreciate that.
I want to say we had a lot of 70s and 80 bushel beans this year on our farm. And we lowered our populations, we rolled, we were stacking nodes.
Yeah.
They looked, I thought, beautiful. I was like, look at all these nodes. I got, so many accountant nodes and pods on the plant. But then I think we aborted a lot. I think we had much higher potential. I was going to ask you because I didn't have very many 4-bean pods. It was a lot of 2s
Yep.
and 3s.
Yes, there's a bunch.
Right?
Can
And then
be, yeah.
I felt like my pods per node were probably lower than it should have been.
Yeah, yeah.
And you saying there's not a one-pass silver bullet makes me sad.
Yeah, because it's the easy button, right?
Yeah,
everybody would love to get it, but it is more work. We talk about that a lot with growers. With the stuff we're doing at the research farm, it is more work. And yeah, it slows me down a little bit, but I get yield. And as a farmer, I want more yield. And just because it's more work, I can't just say, no, I'm not interested in it. And that is a big payoff there. And that's what we got to take advantage of. And that's what we're learning with these beans. We really are.
Yeah. So I think we got to alleviate the stress at the end a lot more.
That's right. That's right.
Treat them bad in the beginning, and then give them a spa day at
Then
the
take
end.
care of 'em, right.
Or through the growing season.
Now, we irrigate. We're using drip irrigation. One of the things that I've learned is we don't put water to soybeans early, but we do turn the irrigation on in order to fertigate.
Yeah.
I'll fertigate early on the beans, again, for that foundation early, but then we shut it off and we'll go irrigate corn. Then we come back to beans and we
Right.
pour it on later.
Okay.
Right.
And I think that's helped, too. My irrigation/fertigation response on beans the last 3 years, I haven't had a year under a 23 bushel yield response.
Wow.
It's been incredible.
Wow.
Incredible.
That is
So you got to
big.
finish hard, right?
So we
You
need
gotta finish
drip
hard.
line.
Drip
Yep.
line, yeah. It's worked for me.
There's an ad.
No, that is fantastic. Well, listeners, this was Jason Webster with Precision Planting. Jason, I assume you're on social media. How can they find you on social media?
Yeah, J Webster Ag on Twitter is mainly where I reside. Guys can check out everything we're doing right there.
Awesome.
Or go to Precision Planting website, precisionplanting.com.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate Brandt for hooking us up and allowing us to set up in their booth down here at the National Farm Machinery Show. Corey, thanks again for being a co-host and hanging out while we're down
absolutely.
here. And listeners, thank you for listening. If you have any ideas or topics to suggest, farm4profitllc@gmail.com. Find us all over social media. Leave us a rating on Spotify and Apple. And until next time, have a good one.
Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long.